Welcome to Page to Screen, the podcast where Nikki and Christina discuss books that were turned into movies and films that were adapted from books. As always, we do remind you that spoilers lay ahead. Now, we invite you to decide with us the age-old question, which is better, the book or the movie?
The mob, police cover-ups, and a kind of crazy affair? Oh, and yeah, there's also like a shark, maybe. Anyways, we're gonna need a bigger podcast. Welcome back to Page to Screen. Joining as always is my forever first mate, Christina.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. How are you doing today?
I'm so confused. How are you doing today?
Well, I am all out of nautical related puns from our Titanic episode, so it'll be mostly pun free and stay dry today.
But you're my favorite pun chum. I did it. Nailed it. Oh, chum. Oh.
We can, I'll try to cut my teeth on this one.
Oh no, I think we're treading water. We should just continue with the episode.
Well, if people haven't figured it out by now, we will be opening this episode in discussing the 1974 American novel Jaws by Peter Benchley, which most people will know the movie. It starts out with the same story where it's a great white shark terrorizing a small village.
Yeah. And then from there it goes off the rails. Like we said in the last episode, I have never read the book.
No.
We're going to talk about the movie later, but I just want to say I applaud these script writers for what they were able to pull from this book to turn into that movie.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of similarities between this and The Birds. But the difference is that The Birds is a very short story. It's like 50 pages or something like that. And it's, or at least I think in my copy it was around 50 and yours was like 19 or something.
Yeah.
That's a really tight, concise story. And even though the movie is so different, I think the short story is really good. Whereas this book, there's definitely a really good idea there, but it loses focus and it kind of jumps around. So at first I thought, oh, this is just like the movie because it has the woman getting attacked in the water, that shark attack. It's got the little boy that dies. It's got, Hooper, and later on Quint shows up and Brody. All those people are there. And then it just goes off the rails.
It is like the A plot of the shark is pretty much the same, when we come to the movie, but it is everything else that like spokes off of this one thing that is just so balls to the wall insane that I found myself, because I had to listen to it as an audiobook.
I did too.
Yeah, I couldn't find it at the library. It was just, I am glad I had to listen to it versus read it, because I can see myself putting the book down and going, nah, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like you reach certain points in this story where you're like, I don't want to hear this.
And I think I might have said this. I thought I had watched Jaws twice. I actually think this was only my second viewing.
Seriously?
Yeah, I know. From start to finish. I've seen like sections of it on TV, but this was really only my second time watching it from beginning to end. So I want to say that when we're in the book portion, because although I remembered the movie, I really didn't remember it that well. So as I'm reading the book, there are certain things that as I'm reading, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That happens. So it wasn't necessarily that I am holding the book in comparison directly to the movie that I have beholden. Like that's not the case for me. I was just reading the book and recognizing that it's a little unfocused.
Yeah. I have seen the movie a lot.
Yeah.
I worked at a small independent cinema, and that was a big summer hit. And it's always on AMC or TCM, and whenever it's on, I do watch it. I like watching the movie. Reminds me of home. Not the ocean, not like
No.
the shark attacks, but like,
Yeah, all those shark attacks back
the
home.
small town stuff. Yeah, all them sharks.
When my friend Billy was murdered by a shark.
Yeah, Bill, right?
Good
But
times.
even though I have seen the movie like 100 times, by the time I got to chapter 2 of the book was so different from the movie that I had no idea what was happening. I was so confused, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to let the book do its thing. And we're just going to sit in the book world for a while and see where it goes. And it took me on the most insane path. I don't want to talk too much crap about the book right off the bat. I do want to say that the descriptions of the mutilations of the people in this book, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I was getting goosebumps listening to it and hearing the descriptions, because it is really horrifying. Like, that's one thing I think the book does really well, is be scary. And I think it's hard for books to scare me. Like, I might get creeped out or think, oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
But I was actually like uncomfortable listening to it. It's graphic, but it doesn't go too graphic. It's not just like blood and guts. It's got the same, like, it's got suspense, and it's a good thriller. I don't know, like, that stuff was done really well, but unfortunately it gets lost.
Yeah. Because I would say the best description of a mutilation in the book is probably the worst of the book, and that's when the little boy dies.
Yeah.
And I swear in the book he says that the legs, I don't want to gross anybody out, but he talks about it in such a way where you feel like it's happening to you. The thing where he's like, it felt like he was being punched in the stomach and he lost all of his air. I was like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. But then he mentions like the legs floated down to the bottom of the ocean like a pair of propellers. And I was like, I'm done. I don't want to know anymore. Please stop talking.
It's weird because a lot of it ends up being not about the shark at all, and instead it's a lot of drama between some of the main characters. So like one of the biggest things that happens is Brody's wife, what's her name, Ellen?
Ellen?
Yeah. Ellen has an affair with Hooper.
Yeah, and it is the weirdest thing. Because there's no real justification for it except that she misses her like rich girl, like debutante lifestyle that she had when she was dating Hooper's older brother as a teenager.
The writer does what a lot of male writers do that's always kind of funny, where most of the women, the way that they're described, are either like hot or fat, and then what their boobs are like. Yeah. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially there's a whole description of like what it's like down at the beach.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care that the teenage girls look like that. That's kind of weird for you to be describing to me.
It's kind of creepy, and he definitely doesn't describe the men with that kind of, eye. Yeah. And the character of Ellen at first I thought was kind of interesting because you feel bad for her and Brody. They've got, like, Brody is going to bed and he wants to be with her, and he's thinking like, oh, I'll just start, kind of caressing her a little bit and then we can fool around. And then she like takes sleeping pills that she doesn't basically have to, but then you find out that she's missing that kind of affection too. And I was like, oh, this is so tragic. This is such like that typical like married story. This is really sad. And when she starts to see Hooper and like there's that, it's not even like they have a connection. It's just more of they're eyeing each other up. Like it's more of a physical thing. And I thought like, okay, but then she just kind of decides to sleep with him, and it feels very contrary to her character.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I think a lot of that is also because she really only has one-on-one conversation with him. Like in the entire book, she sees him at the hardware store, they have a conversation. She invites him to that wacky dinner.
It's so weird.
And then the next time they are together, she is initiating the affair. And it seems to happen so fast. There's no real build to it. She knows what she wants, and she knows that she can get it from him. And all of a sudden it happens, and you're just like, oh, okay. And then that's it. That's the end of that storyline.
It's yeah, there's a lot there. So like that dinner party that they have, she feeds them. I think everybody gets loaded on cocktails first. So I would kind of be sick to my stomach if I did that and I went to the dinner, which is gazpacho and lamb.
Yeah. It sounds disgusting.
In our house, it really did, because we've made, well, we being my husband, not me at all. He's made gazpacho several times. It's always like really good. I love gazpacho. I love lamb, but the way that she pairs it together is really weird. And then they just keep drinking, and it's just like, man, someone's barfing up gazpacho, and I do not want to barf up gazpacho.
No, it was just like, oh God. And then that fight that they had in the kitchen about it.
Yeah.
I was just like, he's complaining that he thinks that it's raw, and she's like, no, it's cooked perfect. And it's just like, I don't understand what's going on with Brody. He's the one I thought was gonna vomit all over the table. I was waiting for it, because there's that one moment where he's sitting there and he's just like, he does the thing that all people who know they've reached their threshold do. Just kind of
Right.
sit there and you know what's going on, and you're just like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, let me focus. And then you turn to someone and you go, yeah.
I like when he's like, okay, I'm gonna get up, and I hope I don't fall over. And then he like just goes to the window and he like puts his head against the window, just like breathes.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's not gonna tell anybody you're drunk.
Yeah. Afterwards, everyone leaves, and yeah, the two of them have that conversation, and she was like, I can't believe you. And he was like, what? I was fine. I was like, no, you weren't.
Well, and I thought that where they were going with all of this is that Brody feels lesser than, because he is more of like working class. He's a cop. He and his wife, when they got together, she basically let go of some of that more wealthy, privileged lifestyle that she grew up with in order to be with him, because she loved him. And then with Hooper coming around, they knew each other in their adolescence, and he is still wealthy. So Brody feels a little emasculated by that. Plus, Hooper is more of like a shark aficionado. He knows more than him, so he just feels emasculated in multiple ways. And I thought that where they were going with that was that when Hooper's talking about sharks, he says the shark has no fear. They don't fear anything. So they'll just keep going and going nonstop for what they want, and they don't give a damn. And I thought, okay, so perhaps Hooper is almost like the shark to Brody, even more so than the shark in the water, because now Hooper's coming into town, people are listening to him, and now he's going to go and fuck Brody's wife. But it didn't like follow through with that. That was maybe something you can read into, but the story kind of just lets that go. Instead, they just end up bickering like little boys. And
well, he never admits it. It's like Brody has this weird affair ESP, and he
right. Like he knows way too soon what's going on. There's no reason for that.
It's just there's a couple of things about the affair that were really bothersome to me. I mean, first of all, he's basing his information that the two of them had an affair off of a secretary who says that other woman who was at the dinner, who was supposed to be the date
like his
for
date, Hooper's date,
is a lesbian because she has a female roommate. And it's like, I mean, maybe there's more to it than that, but also when you think about it in the context of the time period that the book was written, it's like, okay, so a woman of a certain age can't live with another woman of a certain age because then you're labeled a lesbian.
Right.
Like that, I was like, oh, that's rude, because that's, Hooper says when they're on the boat, Brody asks him where he was, and he was like, I was I was at a motel, and he was like, oh, well, who are you with? And he says the name of that woman, and Brody's like, no, she's a lesbian. It's like, I'm sorry, this is a leap too far for me. And then he takes that as confirmation that Hooper's been sticking it to his wife, and I'm like, that's not, I mean, you could just do a normal thing and talk to your wife about it. I mean, I'm sure she would talk to you and explain the situation probably, rather than you just assuming a woman in town is a lesbian. But whatever, you do you. But I think the worst part about the affair is when the affair is being initiated and they're having
I know.
they're having that awkward lunch. So she invites Hooper to lunch. Straight up, that's how she describes it. It's going to be as a lunch. And, she downs a vodka soda. I love a good vodka soda. I understand. Loosens things up. You're relaxed. And then they start talking about fantasies. And Hooper gets her to reveal that she has a rape fantasy.
Yeah.
I just...
She has a rape fantasy, and then he has a fantasy of having a threesome. And what was funny was that I was like, oh, the way that he's writing this is weird, because it's actually like better than some smut I've read in like other books. But like there's a part when he says something like, is the guy big in the rape fantasy?
Yeah.
Talking about whether he's big in the pants. And then he says something like, what are you like? And she's like, well, I have nothing to compare it to. And then she looks down at her chicken and she's like, do chickens have vaginas? And he's like, yeah, talk about tight.
Yeah. It got very weird. It got very weird very fast.
Do chickens have vaginas? Yeah, and they're tight. Like, okay, that's where we're at.
Well,
now.
then I was like, well, how do you know?
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
A wink, wink. It was just that whole conversation, and it was not short. Like, the chapters in this book are kind of like Forrest Gump, where a chapter will be very short, and then a chapter will be like very, very long, and then very short, and then very short, and then super long. This was one of the long ones, and I was like, are we really going to waste ink on this? This is what you wanted to write about in your shark story? Okay, cool. And then he doesn't describe the, them going to the motel and having sex and all of that. It's her retelling it. And even that was awful.
Yeah, well, I think that you're supposed to surmise that, because he says basically like, oh, what could happen between us? You can go to the bathroom, take off your panties, come back, we'll dry. He kind of like gives details there. So I think you're supposed to understand that they did reenact that. And then it picks up with her retelling them having sex, which kind of sounds awful.
Yeah. Well, she says to him, hey, I'm here too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh. It was so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous, and honestly didn't need to be there.
It didn't need to be there, and like I said, it doesn't, with how she's described, it seems like if this affair were going to happen, it would be at least maybe 2 weeks of her flirting with Hooper in town and then it like occurring. It doesn't make sense for it to be 48 hours. That's just extremely shocking to understand, even though we're inside her mind for part of it. And then the way that she gets like remorseful and upset about later on when Brody says that he's going back out in the water to try and get the shark, it's just like you would think that with some of her sensitivity before and after the affair, that she would have had some sort of conflicting feelings after she sleeps with Hooper, and there's none of that. And it almost feels like the writer maybe just didn't want to deal with it. Like, I'm cutting this short. I don't need to add in those extra details. And it's like, well, but without exploring what's actually going on there and getting to some sort of meaningful symbolism between Brody's difficulties in handling both sharks that he's dealing with, between Hooper and the shark in the water, then it just feels cheap.
Yeah.
And it just kind of feels like extra smut to add into the book.
Yeah, it felt, not dealing with the situation felt like he's painting women in a very broad light, where it's like, well, women are fickle, so that's why it's like this. And it's like, well, no, like, you can actually go into the emotions behind what happened, because just like, when I was getting into that stuff where they were like flirting and stuff, I also was like, she would never. I thought maybe Hooper was going to be the one to kind of start things and initiate everything. I would have never expected her to go out of her way to be like, this is what we're doing 48 hours after that weird meal. Like,
but Hooper too, he is like, he's a little cocky, but he's not even like boasting about his money. He just kind of says that offhandedly. And he is not the type to, really the most confident that you see him is at that lunch when he's talking to her. But even then, it's only after she like makes it kind of clear to him that that's what she's there for. He seems to be kind of a nice guy. Like, he doesn't even seem to be like that type, like gonna go steal your girl or anything.
Yeah, it's like all of these characters are on the cusp of being what kind of like, like, but he never, Peter Benchley never goes deep enough into the, like, I guess, the psyche of the characters. And I wonder if it's because he assumed I'm writing a book about a shark. These are just, like, incidentals. Just like there's a part in the book where Brody's talking about, how the police department helped kind of, like, the police department, in conjunction with the newspaper, kind of covered up a rash of rapes that were happening in Amity. Like, first chapter drops a bomb like this, and then we never talk about it again. I'm like, I'm sorry, you guys are going to tell us that this town, in addition to a shark, had a serial rapist and a bunch of teenagers who were breaking into houses, and that every time someone was caught drunk driving, instead of actually punishing them, you just gave them a citation and let them go? What town is this?
You said it reminds you of your hometown, Nikki.
Well, yeah. A wink, wink. I mean, my hometown does not have a rapist. My hometown does not have, a bunch of drunk. Oh, I don't want to say that. Maybe they do. I don't know. A bunch of drunk drivers driving around for no reason. I mean, my town, where I grew up in Massachusetts, is so small. If you're gonna get drunk, just leave your car and walk home. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
It's like,
oh, there goes Steve again.
Oh yeah, there he goes, walking down the street. Like, you don't need to drive unless you live out of town. And if you live out of town, what are you doing? Go home. Go back to where you live and drink in your town. Don't come to mine and drink in mine.
Steven Spielberg said that when he read that, had he actually read the book first before, like, knowing that they were possibly going to make it, that he wouldn't have wanted to make it, because when he did read the book, he thought that everybody was so unlikable, he was rooting for the shark.
Oh, same. 100% same. There were some things that were happening in the book, and I was like, man, I hope in the book the shark eats that guy. And then it never did. And I was like, oh, man, shark, you had one job. Like,
no, who does the shark eat out of our threesome of heroes?
He does eat Hooper.
He does eat Hooper. So Hooper learned his lesson.
And that to me felt weird. That Hooper, I mean, of course Hooper's kind of like an idiot at that point, getting into just like in the movie, he gets into the cage in the water and the shark comes right up to him and eats him. Like, there's no waiting. That is like the quickest death. And the real only explanation of it is when the shark is free-willying over the boat. And they're like, and he just describes it as Hooper's top half on one side of the mouth and the bottom half on the other. And I was like, that's it? You gave me 15 pages on a little boy. 2 seconds? Spot on. Spot on.
It's like when I think about how people are unlikable and it's just like a letdown of an ending. Like when I say those two things, I just think of Game of Thrones. It's like you've got this big build up with Quint and everything, and you've got the build up between these two guys. One of them is sleeping with the other guy's wife. Like there's actually some really good tension that you can have on that boat with those three characters, and it's completely just not there, and then it's not a very exciting ending. So you just are like, oh wait a minute, I dealt with all these shitty people and now I just have this. Like this doesn't make me feel good. And I'm perfectly fine for a collection of people that are unsavory, that aren't exactly moral compasses for one to look at, but it's when you make it boring on top of it without a very good climax, it's just like, well, what are we doing here?
Well, none of the storylines have an end in this book. Nothing wraps up. Nothing concludes. I mean, I guess the affair concludes because Hooper got eaten. So that's it. He's gone. He's gone. he's donezo. And I feel like his death was more of a morality death than it was.
It really, yes. Yeah. It reminded me of how in movies, if a woman cheated pre like 1960, if she cheated in a movie, she either has to die or get her comeuppance somewhere else. So that's why you have like movies where she's disabled or she goes to prison. Like and it's always a woman. So I did enjoy that it's Hooper and not Ellen.
It was very much the rules of horror. Like
it was.
You can't drink, you can't have sex, you can't do any of that. And Hooper does it in this book, and he pays the price. Which I thought was,
there you go, Hoops.
Like so I guess in that respect, there's our storyline ending. But the one that drove me nuts the most, the one that was the most Fast and the Furious, why is this happening situation for me, was the mob storyline.
I know.
There is no ending. There's no end. It's just like all of a sudden it's just done. We're not gonna talk about the mayor anymore. So basically, what we find out in this book is that the mayor of Amity is working with these crazy mob ties, and he was lent money because his wife was sick, and he kept trying to pay them back, and they wouldn't take the money, but they gave him a mark so that he would have to pay it off later or whatever, and that's mob talk for you, a mark. Give him a mark that you have to pay back later. But the whole like mob scheme is buying up all these houses in Amity at dirt cheap prices and then reselling them super high. And that's how the mob wanted their money, which honestly is a stupid idea. Yeah. Like the housing market fluctuates so much. You're better off just like selling drugs or something. I don't know what the mob does now, but do whatever the mob is doing now. You'll make your money back that way. But but it's like we find like that's why the mayor is so pushy and so adamant about keeping the beaches open, because he wants people to come in, because he's completely dirt poor now. He's used up all of his own personal finances to buy all of these houses underneath his real estate company that he keeps saying he has partners for. But everyone's like, I don't think he has partners. I think he's lying the whole time. And it's kind of convoluted. Like, he's very, like, dictatory. Because there's that one part where they're all in that meeting, and he picks up the other phone and listens into Brody's conversation.
Right.
And in this conversation, what is the name of the guy who does the newspaper?
Newspaper guy.
Yeah, newspaper guy. He has a bigger part in the book, a much smaller part in the movie. But newspaper guy on the phone call just like says everything about the mob, goes through the entire thing. It's like, oops, forgot to explain this at the beginning of the book. Here's everything you need to know about his mob ties. Just like throws this all at us. And he's listening on the other line, has a massive freak out. And then everything kind of unravels from there. Like, then Brody's cat gets murdered by the mob. And then while Brody's out at sea, the mayor comes to the house to say goodbye to Mrs. Brody and is like, I could have been so happy if you were my wife.
Yeah, that was weird too. It was like, I don't know. It's like that conversation comes up and she's even like, why? Like,
yeah.
she's not too sure why he's there either.
It's so out of left field. Like, I could understand if there were moments where the mayor was being slightly flirty with her throughout the book, all of that stuff, because then she starts thinking, like, what life would have been like with this man who wears, like, really nice suits and, flaunts his wealth and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, girl, didn't we just go through this with Hooper?
Yeah.
Like, what? And then the mayor just skips town and that's it.
It would make so much more sense if you had her as this wasn't the first time that she's cheated on Brody.
Yeah.
And maybe, like, there was something between her and the mayor beforehand. So, like, then Brody's, like, up against the world. Like, I don't know. Like, there could have been more that you could have gone through with Ellen, and it's just weird. It's like little puzzle pieces without the picture.
Ellen needed a Sidney Prescott situation. Because Sydney's mom, it was rumored that, for everyone who hasn't seen Scream, apologies, but for everyone else, you get what I'm going with this. Sydney's mom in Scream was rumored to have slept around. Like, she was sleeping with everybody. Mm-hmm. And that's what we needed in this, was that rumored, like, that's why the lady at the post office doesn't like her, and that's why all of this stuff. It's not because she's not from the island. It's because she's, she puts herself out there. She's,
right.
She's enjoying herself, so to speak. And it would make sense if you did it where it was like she's sleeping with the guys who come in from New York City in the summer. And, in the winter, she's Brody's devoted wife. And in the summer, she's just like a floozy. Like, that would have made more sense to what happens in this book between her and Hooper and what the mayor says to her versus the mayor just coming over and being like, oh, I wish it was you. Bye.
Bye.
And he kisses her on the top of the head and just leaves. And then we never talk about him again. And the book's not over. We still had like 4 chapters left in the book after this part.
Yep.
And no one else is like, hey, has anyone seen the mayor?
Nope. Yeah. And I feel like the action although like the action and the horror and the suspense at the beginning part of the book is really good, I feel like it completely drops off in the last bit of action and then it just ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just ends.
Yeah, because even the end of the book doesn't have an actual ending.
No.
Like the A plot of the shark. But is he dead? Is it alive? Like, what? That's it? Okay. I full on thought there was going to be one more chapter.
No, it's one of those, my husband always jokes when I watch old movies that a lot of old movies end that way. It's just like boom and credits. And you're like, wait, what? Did this skip over something? Like, let me look at the tracking. Oh, no, that's it.
Yeah. It's just, especially when you get to, because everything leads up to what you think it would be kind of like in the movie. We have Hooper's death, which is pretty big. And then Quint is doing, he's shooting all the harpoons into the shark. And unfortunately, his foot gets caught in the rope and he gets dragged completely underwater. So he's gone. And Brody's all alone. And you think you're going to have this super heroic moment. And then it's kind of like, I don't even remember how they describe it. It's just like the shark just like dove underwater. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like floating.
Yeah.
And then it was like, cool, but is it like asleep? That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it playing dead? Is it going to turn around and kill Brody? Because that would have been, honestly, a greater ending to this book because, if we're talking about, if the book is saying that it's all about morality, because that's what the woman at the post office keeps saying, they're being punished by God. If that is what it's about, then, like, everybody in town is going to face something for their actions. And in And Hooper dies because, you know, he had the affair. You know, Brody could have easily been eaten because of his fearfulness and the fact that he's not the prototype masculine male. You know, he wasn't able to stand up to the mayor like he wanted to, and he kind of just let everything happen. He should have died too if that's the case.
Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, at the end of the book, the town should have been run by sharks. Like, do you remember that cartoon Street Sharks?
Barely.
Where it was like these sharks that wore like cut off shorts.
Yeah, I remember like the image of it, but no, nothing more than that.
That's how Josh should have ended, with the street sharks, all just like, street sharks. Hey guys, come to our town. We wear cut off shorts.
Low rates in housing.
I would definitely live in a town full of sharks. I'd be like, okay, but we can't go out. We can't go in the ocean. We're just gonna stay in the house, you guys. It's like, because you know what it would be? It would just be like that skit from SNL when Land Shark knocks it.
Yeah, no, I like that one.
Land Shark.
It's so stupid.
It's like, I'm not letting you in, Land Shark. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Trick or treat for UNICEF. Oh, okay. Nom, nom, nom. That is the new town of Amity.
Can I reveal something?
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't know much about sea people. What is it? Marine biology. Marine biology.
Oh, I was like, sea people. You mean mermaids?
No. Marine biology. I happen to not be a marine biologist.
What?
And when I know a lot about a lot of things, or I know a little bit about a lot of things, and this is not one of them. They're referring to the shark as a fish,
yeah.
And I was like, idiots, sharks aren't fish. And sharks are mammals. They're in like a whole different. And then they kept doing it. I'm like, well, I don't think they'd make that like error in 1974. And I looked it up, and it's like sharks are fish. Yeah. And Google almost looked at me like, for real? Are you really asking that? I know how old you are.
Shut up, Google.
Whose side are you on?
Yeah, come on, Googs. What's up with that?
Sharks are fish.
Yeah. Sharks are very interesting creatures.
They are.
I will say that. And that's going to lead me to, before we talk about the movie, because the inaccuracies between the book and the movie are great, I thought it was time to do a little bit of shark facts. Shark facts. Before we start off these shark facts, though, I do want to send you a quick video that I would like you to watch, and I want your honest reaction to this. Okay. And then I'll tell the people at home what we're watching.
This isn't like a little kid getting killed, is it?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's that scene from Jaws, just on like repeat in slow-mo. So I asked my mom a simple question. I was like, how do sharks poop? And my mom goes, what? And I was like, how do sharks poop? Like, I don't understand. I've never seen it. I don't get it. And my mom was like, you should ask Google, but also just know you can't unsee that. And I was like, okay. And she's like, you're going to know this fact forever, and you cannot unsee that. And I was like, okay, great. Because I'm just, I'm curious because the shark in Jaws eats a lot of people, and a lot of sharks eat just straight up trash. Just wanted to see it. And then I saw it, and Christina just watched it live on the podcast, and you can't unsee that.
I just finished the video, and there's a shark. It's these scuba divers in one of those cages that I will never go inside.
Yeah, same.
And the shark goes by them, and they're filming it, and then it poops on them, and then at the end you see the guy take out the breathing device, and he's like spitting out shark poop.
Yeah. Because the way a shark poops is it's kind of like it just
looks like diarrhea.
It just blows smoke out its butt. You know what I mean? Like it's just like whoosh, and there it is. So if you were to be eaten by a shark, just know whatever it bites off of you is just going to turn into you are dust in the ocean. That's basically what all you are. You are nothing to that shark. It don't care. Like, sharks are, like, super interesting. that to the point where at one point medical research suggested that sharks don't get cancer and therefore their cartilage could help humans cure the disease. When in fact sharks can get cancer, and eating shark cartilage will only make you feel like real crappy about yourself. Like, don't do that.
For a moment, I was like, "Oh, that's great." Oh,
Yeah, don't.
never mind.
Please, this is a public service announcement. Don't eat shark. So, of the 400 plus species of sharks, only 12 species are actually known to have killed a human without,
Wow.
without being provoked. Roughly, this is where I think sharks are real smart, and this is why I want to live in Amity full of sharks, because roughly 9.2 men are attacked for every one woman. And that's according to the Florida Museum of Natural History. So experts aren't sure why. Their thinking is that because men dive and surf more often than women do. I just think because sharks are feminists. So...
The first thing I thought of, no offense to guys, I was just like, guys do a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, girls do too, for sure. But when you see those videos, like, a lot of times it's a guy doing something stupid.
It's always a guy out on a fishing boat, like, oh, look at this shark I just caught, and then it bites its hand. Like, hey, maybe don't touch that shark. That explains a lot to me. Hashtag feminist sharks. So sharks are also much less responsible for multiple attacks in the same area in the ocean. So that totally debunks everything about Jaws, because the shark in Jaws, Bruce, just stuck to one spot the entire time.
He moved in. He, like, brought his bags.
Yeah.
He's living there now.
Well, yeah, he lives in Amity. I told you, it's a town full of feminist sharks. When a shark does attack a person, it's usually because they're mistaking, and this is actually something I learned in school. They usually attack a person because they mistook them for a seal or another sort of creature that would be flopping around in the water, because they're better. I thought I heard that sharks were better at seeing deeper in the water than closer to the surface, but they can judge. They can judge, like, the movements in the water. So they just assume it's like a fish. But what a shark will do is kind of like when you go to Costco and they're like, have a sample. The shark's just like, I just want to see what it is. I just want to see what's in it.
It's like shark tapas. I do that too.
Yeah. But there are a lot of researchers who are like, no, that's wrong. And I'm starting, after doing some shark research for my shark facts, I'm starting to lean a little bit closer to what these researchers say, because sharks are supposed to have, like, they're supposed to have good vision, not great vision, but they have a very sophisticated sense of smell. And these researchers claim that the sharks aren't interested in a taste test, but they actually want us to leave because they see humans as a fellow predator that could compete with them for food. Aww. And that sharks actually do... they show an aggressive posture previous to attacking. So they are letting you know, like, I'm here and I want you gone. And then we as humans are like,
right,
la, 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 la. And then we get bitten by a shark. And that's...
See, I feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah, they are very misunderstood. I think they're gentle giants. They just want to swim and eat. And a majority of shark deaths are human. Like, especially after this movie came out, the population of almost every shark went down, anywhere between 20 and 30%, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, I did read about that. That's like one of the few shark facts that I read about this that really bummed me out was just how many people started attacking sharks and other sea life that they thought were sharks incorrectly. And that's just, like, so shitty.
It is. And it's like, I've mentioned this before, you know, I come from a family of fishermen. Like, it's one thing to, and even if you're not a fisherman, if you're a hunter or something, it's one thing to kill something. It's another thing to kill something and know you're going to feed your family every part of that, the thing that you caught. And you can't do that with a shark. A shark doesn't actually have bones. Their body's made up of, like, all cartilage. That's why, like, in the movie, when we see Quint in his house, he's boiling down the jaw of a shark because you have to melt off all that cartilage. Just boiling fat.
That made us laugh when we were watching it. When he like takes out the jaws. My husband Carlos is like, "You ready for teeth stew?" Like, what are they eating?
Honestly, every time I see that scene, I'm like, that shack must smell so gross.
I know.
So gross.
Even like I said, I'm not a marine biologist. Like I wasn't one of those kids that got like super into sharks or anything. But even without that interest, just being in Florida, you end up learning a lot of stuff just by like happenstance. I mean, it's hard to go even to some like beachside restaurant and there's not like some sort of boardwalk that you can walk along and it's got little facts about marine life there. So just me, it's like I love.
Yeah.
I think dolphins are dicks, even though I like to see them jump because they're kind of cute still. They're like cute dicks.
Yeah.
Wait, that sounds bad.
What are you talking about,
Cute
Hooper?
Chicken vaginas and cute dicks.
Delicious.
No, they're cute. I love manatees, and sharks have a bad rep.
Yeah, I think we were lucky to grow up where we did in Florida, in South Florida, where we could see manatees. And and then you also had to see like the damage that speedboats cause manatees.
Which sucks.
Yeah. And I know that when I was in elementary school, I don't know if they still do this. We did a tour of like a mangrove field. Yeah. Out in the ocean, and they made us all buy water shoes for it, and they tell you to shuffle your feet in the water because of stingrays, because you don't want to step on them. And I was like, it seemed so normal at the time, but then thinking back on it, I'm like, why did you put me in water with stingrays? I'm like 7.
No, I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing. And then I remember getting taught early on, like, what to do with jellyfish. Yeah. And then having to, like, watch out for tar and, like, how you wash that off. Like, we're lucky to be alive.
I know. The whole thing where it's, like, if you get caught in a riptide and, like, honestly, growing up in Florida was like, hey, kid, you're 5 now. Here's the law of the land. See you later. I was like, what? I'm like, I need an adult. Like, oh, yeah, hey, if that gator comes out, just zigzag. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a great way to segue into the movie. The book was adapted very fast into the 1975 thriller film directed by an extremely young Steven Spielberg, also by the same name, Jaws. It was originally written by Peter Benchley, who also wrote the book. However, significant rewrites occurred. Some of it are uncredited, but a lot of it was Carl Gottlieb.
Yeah. And he plays newspaper guy.
He does play newspaper guy. And then it also stars Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss.
And I just want to say it's very interesting that lately some of the books to movies we've been talking about have had such a quick turnaround. Yeah. From book to film. And once again, Richard Dreyfuss had his first starring role in Valley of the Dolls. And by starring, I mean he said one line. Congratulations.
And of course, this is a John Williams score.
Yes. Oh, of course it is. And it's an Academy Award-winning score for John Williams. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it's actually, about the score, it's actually his first Academy Award win for his own score. Because he had previously won for Fiddler on the Roof, which wasn't his score.
Right.
If anyone has the Jaws special edition DVD / Blu-ray, like I have, there's this great making of documentary. It's about 2 hours long, which I was totally into. But Richard Dreyfuss tells this great story about being cast in this film. And he basically says that he got offered the role, and he told Steven Spielberg no. He didn't want to do it because he he looked over the script and everything, and he was like, the movie sounds amazing, but I would much rather watch it than be a part of it, because it
Right.
sounds like it's going to be hell to shoot. I don't
Yeah.
want to be a part of this. And I was like, same. But he did another movie that was premiering a little bit after that conversation with Steven Spielberg, and he went to Canada for the premiere of this movie, and he saw himself on the screen, and he thought he was so bad in this movie that as soon as it was over, he went out and called Steven Spielberg. It was like, hey, is that offer to be in this film still available? Because he was worried that if he didn't find work right away, he'd never work again.
And of course the trick of it was that it was hell to make, and it was really difficult for him on an acting level with some of the personality conflicts that he had on set, and then they just had like issue after issue after issue between the location, special effects not working, the sharks not working. So he did predict that correctly.
Yeah, he's got the ESP. I do love this movie. I really do. It is so wrong in so much. But there's just, I mean, it is when you think of summer movies, I feel like everyone automatically thinks of Jaws.
Yeah, it's the first summer blockbuster.
Yeah. Until Star Wars. What?
Well, I like I said, I have only seen it I think once from beginning to end when I was maybe like 12, something like that, and then I've seen like bits and pieces since then. And when I sat down to watch it, this movie's rad as hell. Like I love this movie. I was like actually like shocked how much I love this movie. I think it's a really great movie. It went by really fast. It's like 2 hours, and at one point I had to pause just to like take my dog Grayson out, and then later it got really late and I thought, oh, maybe I should pause it and go to bed, and there was only like 8 minutes left of the movie because it's just like it's such a fun fast watch. And then I got scared multiple times. I jumped like like
when the head pops out of the boat.
Yes, two of them were Jaws, and then the third one was the head, and it like legit scared me. I was in the suspense. It's just such a fun movie to watch.
Oh yeah, when you are in it, you are in it. And like I can completely understand why people were afraid to go in the water after this. Like it's the action when comparing it to the book, it is nonstop action, and it is shot in such it's shot in a way that you are forever just like constantly looking. You are constantly, like, they are inside Brody's house, and you're like, where's that shark? Is it going to come out of the drain? What's it doing? Where is he at?
Yeah.
Like, you are in it with them. And I think one of the best things that Steven Spielberg did was he used a water box to film a lot of the scenes when they're at the beach. So you are at the level of the water for a lot of it. And it is the scene when they think the shark is there on the beach at the 4th of July, and it's just those two kids goofing on everybody, but everyone's running out of the water. Like it takes your breath away, because it's almost like you are there trying to get out. Like they're stomping on people, and you're just like the whole time. And it's that camera angle that gets you like in it. You're like in that moment with them, and it's so good.
You know, I am such a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan, and I tend to go back to him a lot and comparing like other later filmmakers to him. But there's so much of this movie that I feel like as a trilogy, watching Psycho, The Birds, and Jaws is just like such a tight, fun grouping, because so much of those two movies are in this, and it's not in a way that I think is like a cheap steal. I think it's brilliantly like redone in Jaws, and it combines a lot of the horror and suspense from the other two movies in just a really fun way. Like I think it's so successful. And there's the famous fact that everybody knows from this movie that the shark wasn't working, which is one of the reasons why you don't see it as much, but like thank God it didn't happen. It's so scary, and there's so many shots that he has that reminds me of the Hitchcock stuff where you see stuff in the background, or when they walk up on the woman's body it's like you're following Brody, and then there's like the hill of sand. So she's obscured, and the fact that they're constantly toying with the audience sometimes seeing more than the character that they don't see behind them, or the character seeing something that's being obscured for the audience. You're constantly like knowing more than the characters and also completely in the dark.
Oh yeah, because it's like your imagination, what you imagine this monster to be is always going to be 10 times worse than what it actually is. So when those things are happening and you don't see it, like the opening shot with the girl getting attacked,
Yeah.
that always gives me goosebumps, because even though
Same.
I've seen the movie like hundreds of times and I know what the shark is supposed to look like later on, you're still just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's just so good. I have goosebumps talking about it now. It's just so
I know, me
good.
too.
It is so good. And I'm so glad that they got some people in there to really finesse the script, because like I said, between the book and the movie, they refined it to what the central storyline needed to be, and it's perfect. None of that. I know that the woman who played Ellen Brody really wanted the affair in the movie because she wanted more screen time, which of course as an actor everybody does, but
Yeah.
completely unnecessary. We don't need it. The mob ties to the mayor, we don't need it. The rape cover-ups, don't need it. We just need a story about a shark.
Well, and the writer who did the first, couple treatments of the script still had all that stuff in, and Spielberg told Gottlieb to eradicate it,
Yeah.
to completely demolish the work that had already been done in the script and pull all that stuff out. And like I said, I think that there is like a story that could be told where in a way that adds more suspense from a character standpoint, but I'm so glad it's not in this movie. I think that this movie is such a good, tight story with the shark, and it's 2 hours. I mean, this is not just like
Yeah.
a really short movie. It's good, and I think that focusing in on the three guys on this voyage, their story and the way that they are working together is fun enough to watch without all that other extra stuff.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. This movie is fun. Like, yeah, there's a lot of death, but it is so quotable. It's so in, the zeitgeist of, pop culture. It is a thing that everybody know. Like, you could not, I swear I could go into a crowded space and start going, Donna, and somebody would follow. It's a fun, it is summer in a film. You know what I mean? Like, that's a summer. It had every right to be a summer blockbuster. I'm glad that shark screwed up so much.
Well, and we kind of talked a little bit about Spielberg when we did Ready Player One, and it's interesting to me because since then, I mean, it's been a long time. It's 50 years since the movie came out. He has said a few times that he's kind of back and forth over the years with some of like his quotes. And one of them, he was saying how he should have filmed it with a big water tank and used more stuff in the studio so he wasn't making everybody's life a living hell. But again, I'm really glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like some difference between Spielberg early versus Spielberg now. Like I think that when you watch this movie, you can smell the beach.
Yeah.
You can understand who all these people are because they're actually in the community that matches Amity, and you see them in the water and you believe that they're in the water because they're in the water. There's nothing about it that makes me feel like it is fraudulent.
There was a time when they were trying to do all the shots that happen at the end when they're on the Orca, and Steven Spielberg asked if they could move production to like Bermuda where the waters were calmer, and they said no. Straight up, they were like, no, you can't do that. I was like, oh, Steven. But he did do there are some really interesting things that he was able to do that worked so well that I had seen the making of once on television, and it's great. I suggest if anyone can find it, I think it's on YouTube as well. Just Google like the making of Jaws 1995 because that's when it came out. And it's long, but it is so in depth, and it has all these behind the scenes things. And one of the first things that they shot, because they didn't actually have a script when they started, one of the first things they did was they contacted this husband and wife duo in Australia who work with sharks, and they asked them if they could help film some more pivotal scenes. And the scene that they actually shot was when Hooper's in the cage. They shot all of that in
Right.
Australia, and the shot that you see of the shark like thrashing on the cage is 100% real. That is a real shark with a miniature sized cage to make it seem like the shark is
Yeah,
huge.
isn't it like I thought I saw that it was a little person in the cage because they were trying to make the shark look bigger, and then when the shark attacked the cage, that actor was like, "Yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm not going back in that cage."
Well, he wasn't a certified diver. They
Oh,
talk about
great.
this in the thing. They had to teach him how to dive, and they just put him in the cage for scenes where the shark swims by. But what happened was they got him out of the cage, and while he was out of the cage, they actually caught a shark in this weird shark harness thing that they were trying to use to get the shark to be aggressive, because shark fact, sharks aren't always aggressive. Spoiler alert. But they actually filmed it without anyone in the cage, which didn't work for what was supposed to happen in the script. But the shark was attacking this cage like crazy, to the point where it, like, it broke it and it fell to the ground and all this stuff. And the shark was real mad after that. Like, and they needed to get the cage back up. And the husband of the duo was like, I was in a separate cage and I broke down. He like opened up the bottom of his cage and walked over to the other cage. Just like one big cage walking underwater. But that's why Hooper's able to get away in the film, because they had to rework it so that he swims out, so that it makes sense with the footage that they shot in Australia.
It's always funny to hear some of these behind the scenes facts before they got serious about animal rights.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow, how did you make it look like it was pissed off? We pissed it off.
Yeah.
We
Purposely
we
made it
tortured
angry. We put it in a
There's
harness,
like
no worries.
There's the thing with the body of the woman at the beginning, and you see all the crabs on it, and the crabs weren't moving, so they just poured hot coffee on the crabs.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, that was a real person's hand.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So, like, when you read about them being like, yeah, we poured hot coffee on them, it's also like, you poured hot coffee on a PA on set. That's good job, Steven. But I 100% agree. Like, when you looking at Steven Spielberg's work now versus like Duel, which he said was like, Jaws was like Duel in the ocean. You're looking at these and you're like, it is gritty and it is on site. It is there. You feel like you are there. And then you look at Ready Player One and you're like, oh God, why? There's something, I feel like because of Jaws, he got the notoriety that he needed and got the money that he wanted and was able to just kind of take a back seat to onset. And maybe it's because of his experience with Jaws. Maybe after Jaws, he was just like, I cannot do that. We're in studio forever. Because
I just think that there's so much about this that it is a young filmmaker, but someone who's already been in the business. It's not like this is his first rodeo or anything like that. But also someone that it does have some genius, because even the casting, like, there's something about Richard Dreyfuss that I always find to be kind of like he's an asshole maybe, but that works really well with the Hooper that's in the movie, where yeah, he is kind of an asshole, but also he's really talented.
Yeah.
So it goes over and translates into the character really well. And the same for the other two. Like, there's a lot of sad stories about Shaw and what he was going on in his life. Like, the whole scene when he tells about all of the sailors that were eaten by the sharks. When he first filmed that, he was completely high on drugs or I guess pills, and alcohol. So he begged Spielberg to let him do it again, and then he did the next day, and it was all done in one take, which is such a good scene. And that the whole crew just started clapping because it was so well done. And it's like, it's sad because of what was going on in his real life, but you can feel it in the character. It's like this sadness that is being seen on screen in this tragic but then kind of heroic way.
yeah. it's the casting for this. I probably wouldn't change a single thing. You know, maybe I'd be like, hey, Peter, maybe you shouldn't be in the movie. That would be my only change, because honestly, he made me so mad with the book. I'm like, get off my screen. Though, yeah, there's nothing I would change except maybe I would mass market the mayor's suits so that I might buy one, because Lord knows I need a seersucker suit with anchors on it like yesterday.
Oh, Nikki, I will screenshot one of my notes that I have right now. Okay, here it is. It's right here. Would Nikki wear a blue anchor blazer?
I think I answered your question. Yes.
I saw that and I was like, I'm pretty sure Nikki needs that right now.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely wear it. I would wear it. Here's something I know about Paul F. Tompkins has one. He had one custom made. I know this because I heard him on a podcast once, and it might be Doug Loves Movies podcast, where he said that he loves it. He loves that suit. I love that suit. He has that suit. I need that suit. What I'm saying is, hey, Paul, can I have your suit? Like, it is my dream outfit. I want this so bad. I'm going to look like a dick who just wants beaches open all the time, but I'm going to look good while I look like that dick.
Again, that's a weird sentence. But no, I can see you looking really cute with like maybe like a cute white sundress and then that blazer. Super cute.
I love this screenshot you sent me because on top of it, you also wrote, everyone litters.
Everyone does. I'm watching it, and it's just constantly people are throwing cigarettes overboard. You see someone in the background throwing a can of soda, and then at the same time, everybody is ridiculously tan. And it's just like, man, all of our problems that we have right now, you guys didn't know about skin cancer, lung cancer. You were shitting all over the environment. Like, thanks a lot.
Oh, yeah, they're smoking in the hospital.
They are smoking in the hospital.
That's the one thing where I looked at Jesse and went, they're smoking in the hospital, and Jesse goes, can't do that anymore. I was like, I need you to have a better reaction to this because I am being thrown for a loop here. And when you're talking about everyone being tan, are you talking about that woman on city council?
She is tan as shit.
She looks like a leather handbag.
No, she really does. And the whole time I'm like, oh, you guys need to wear hats and maybe get some, skin protecting shirts.
Yeah. I mean, it is skin cancer city. Like, for a summer town, you're all going to die real young, and not because of a shark. Lord. Even all the kids were super tan too.
I just think about, it was like one of the last times that I had like a nice little pool party was at my dad's, and I had this really cute black bathing suit, and I took a picture with like that and a black sun hat on. But then the truth of it is that right after that, I put on this like ugly pink shirt to protect my arms. Like,
well, I'm not one to talk about other people's tanning processes, because I recently went to a beach and sent Christina a photo of me after, where all I said in that photo was, I got sunburnt and I am bright red. Bright red.
Yeah, but also you've got like, our skin tones are completely different.
Yeah.
You've got that like pretty Italian, like olive kind of skin that can tan, and I've got this like
ghost
white Irish skin that just freckles. Like, it's not good for
Hey,
me.
if you get
Not a
enough
good look.
freckles, you could be tan.
They're just trying to combine.
Yeah, it's just your tan trying to come together. So the movie, if you cut out all of the extra stuff from the book and just leave it bare bones,
It's pretty good.
yeah, it's book to screen. You know what I mean? Like, it follows pretty much the same timeline of woman gets killed. Actually, no, there's extra deaths in the book. There's extra deaths in the book that aren't in the movie, but woman gets killed, kid gets killed.
And a poor doggy.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. I don't like the idea that the dog dies in the movie.
No, and I'm glad it wasn't shown on screen.
Yeah.
When the kids are all like going out into the water and so's the doggy, I was like, I don't care what happens to those kids as long as the doggy's okay.
Yeah, and then they cut to that piece of wood just floating.
No.
I know, every time, every time. Um, there is another interesting bit about that scene because that's when that woman in those really amazing patchwork jeans starts screaming,
Yes.
"Oh my god, I want those jeans! I want her whole outfit." I was like, "I'm gonna be a painter now." She's yelling that the shark is in the like the tide pool or whatever.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels weird in that scene because they say that his son went into shock, and it's just like 1 minute he's just
Yeah.
sitting there and he's just staring straight ahead, and then the next minute they're pulling him out of the water.
Yeah.
There is a cut scene
Okay.
where the guy who's in that little dinghy, who's like, "You kids okay?" and then he gets eaten by the shark. He was actually, they shot it too. He was actually in the shark's mouth, and the shark is supposed to be moving towards the kids in the water, and the guy actually grabs Brody's son and is holding him as the shark is ready to dive under, and he pushes the kid out, and the shark dives underwater, and that's why the kid's in shock, and that makes so much more sense.
That's so horrific. Oh my god.
Yeah, and that's what Steven Spielberg saw it and was like, "Oh, we cannot put this in the movie." he's like, "Okay, that is a little too much."
Oh, I love it though.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that it was in the movie.
Well, and I'm still surprised to find out that this movie is rated PG.
Yeah, I feel like it would not have a PG rating
Well,
these days.
it almost didn't get PG because of that scene too, because when his leg floats down to the bottom, they had to cut like 2 seconds off of that, and that's how they
Wait,
got
there's
PG.
no way this is PG.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said it was PG. I think it was
Because you see boobies at the beginning.
yeah. Oh yeah, you do see booby. Well, you see like almost full frontal at the beginning.
Yeah, because when it's like, you don't exactly see it, but you can make it
Yeah,
out.
it is PG. It's 1975, baby.
We're smoking in hospitals. Kids can see boobies.
Yeah, so many boobies, so much murder.
I think that because this is only my second time, I've never owned it on Blu-ray or DVD, VHS, never. So I'm pretty sure like every time that I've seen it, it's been on TV, which means that the little bit of nudity that you get was probably just, they did that cheap Photoshop and blurred it so you don't see it. But that's not always like clear,
Yeah.
particularly when it's like smaller like this. It's not like as blatant. Not like the showgirls when they like poorly drew on like the pasties
Yeah.
and the bras. That I was actually surprised at the beginning. I'm like, oh, she's quite naked.
Yeah, well, they didn't introduce PG-13 until 1984 with Red Dawn. So
Right.
listen, the 70s were like us growing up in South Florida. You're gonna learn about it one way or another, and we're just gonna throw you in.
It's a wild, wild
Yeah,
west.
deal with it. Deal with it. Boobs for everyone. I feel like, oh my god, I feel like we're in Valley of the Dolls again.
Boobies, boobies, boobies.
Oh, Neely. There's honestly one of my favorite scenes is when Brody pours himself that glass of wine.
Yeah.
It's just so artfully done, and then I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm a Brody.
Brody is such a fun character because and there are similarities definitely between Brody in the book and Brody in the film, but you just kind of feel bad for him, and he's trying so hard, and then he's trying to adapt, and he's trying to learn how to, tie that knot and get better at everything.
Yeah.
But then he's feeling so much remorse about not having more of a backbone about closing the beaches, and I find that he's fun to watch because he's so much more quiet. And when you compare him to Quint and Hooper, he's a lot more quiet. Like, in so much as when they are doing the whole thing where they're comparing the scars, you actually see him go like, oh, and here's mine, but then he doesn't actually say anything. It's like this is a moment that he can kind of be a wallflower, and he doesn't need to have this moment with the other two, which is kind of like a bonding moment for them.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was such an interesting character moment where he's like, oh yeah, and mine too, but then he doesn't.
Well, that scene where they're comparing like battle scars and stuff, it goes to the overarching feeling that the film is very steeped in this kind of toxic masculinity. And because we only focus on those three main characters throughout, like, almost from the, like, half of the film throughout the very end, you know, there are no other women. There's nothing. It's just the three of them. But it's constantly this battle of who's the strongest, who's the most masculine of them all. Because you see it right off the bat with, you know, Quint doing all those stupid jokey things to everybody, making fun of everyone. Yeah. He tells Brody, good thing you brought your rubbers. But then it's really Quint and Hooper who are having this insane battle between each other, because they do come from two completely different walks of life. You know, Hooper is this rich guy, and he makes a point of saying that when they're on his boat. And then he
bought everything.
Yeah. And then you have Quint, who's like literal salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yeah.
But like there's that cup crushing scene.
Yeah, I like that part.
And they're holding eye contact, which is super bizarre. You know, and then when they're going, before they go out on the Orca, and Quint's like, tie me this stupid knot. And he's testing his skills. He's testing like how much of a man he really is.
Well, they both have chips on their shoulder. One of them is younger, book smart, and his experiences with the sea have been in kind of controlled areas, whereas this other guy is this one of the only survivors of this horrific tragedy, and has made his it's Moby Dick. It's like he's made his entire life about killing all of these like sharks and these big monsters of the sea. And both of them have this weird thing where they kind of have a respect for the ocean, but also feel like they are master of it, that they know so much about it. But then both of them are up against this foe that is greater than either of them have ever experienced or even knew of before. Like when they actually see the shark go by, and he goes, that's a 20-footer, and he's like, it's a 25, and both of them are just so shocked at it, but one of them knows better the actual length, because he's just seen it so many times. He can probably measure it just by eye better than the other one can. And with Quint's death, with it switching from Hooper's death to Quint's death, I think it's so much more poignant that he's the one that goes down with the shark at the end.
I agree, because he escaped death once. Yeah, like you can't do it twice.
It's like he's almost on borrowed time, and this whole time he's had this like revenge, like he's kind of making it up for the other men that died, and he's finally met his match.
Yeah. It's like and honestly, it's that sort of situation where you kind of think that he knew that this was the only way he could go out, because you also have like, this is one part of the film where I'm kind of like, this is kind of weird, in that they have this amazing bonding moment. They have their sing-along, which is like my favorite part.
I love that part.
And then the next day, it's almost as if none of that happened, because the next day is when Quint goes nuts and smashes the radio, and you know, he gets the two guys set up with their life jackets, because he says that he's never going to wear one again. And it's just like, he kind of knew at that point, because they had already seen the shark, they knew that the shark was out for them no matter what. It's almost as if he resigned himself to knowing that this is it. I'm going to do what I can, but also this is it.
You know, I don't mean to gush. I don't like being someone that gushes, but I almost feel sad for myself that it's taken this long in life for me to like jump on the bandwagon that like almost everybody on Earth is on.
The boat wagon?
That this movie is awesome, because I can even see myself like over the next couple of weeks just throwing it on while I'm like cleaning in the house. Like, it's just a really fun movie.
Oh yeah, there's so much to look out for. And honestly, one of my favorite things is the color of this film, because usually when you have like an antagonist, they're usually wearing black and reds and like these colors that are like basically a literal red flag. And that's not anywhere in this film. The only red is blood. That's it.
I actually, with the way that the shark was constantly not working on set, you kind of expect that by the time it shows up, it's going to look kind of stupid, but I still think it looks awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the actual stuff that they did, like he looks really scary and he looks really good, and just the details in the eyes, and then when he like blows up at the end, I thought that looked cool, even though a lot of it's in shadow. It feels very real and believable.
I feel like that was probably the most cathartic moment for everyone on set when they blew up the shark that didn't work. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, you guys. At the end of the movie, the shark blows up.
Yeah.
But I also want to go back to when Quint dies. He dies such a heroic death.
Yeah.
When you think about it, and I think it goes back to that whole argument about masculinity, because previous to that, Hooper's in the cage. The shark attacks the cage, Hooper gets out, and rather than going right up to the surface to get back on the boat, he hides throughout the whole end of the thing. Like, Quint and Brody assume that Hooper's dead, even though they have no, like, shark poop residue to really figure it out. You know, the two of them assume that he's gone. Quint like sets up Brody with everything that he needs to be able to kill this thing. And Brody even gets like an action line at the end, you know? You assume that this is it. And then all of a sudden, you know, sissy boy Hooper pops back up and is like, here I am.
I did think it was funny that at the end, it's not the, you know, the salt of the earth guy that's the hero. It's not the scientist. It's the cop with a gun.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I think, because this is something we always talk about, what is it trying to tell us? And lately I've been trying to figure that out, because I know you're going to say it at some point. What does it mean? I really think this film, where the book I feel is more about, you know, morality and, you know, I feel like this is about facing your fears in whatever that means to you. You know, Brody's fear is the water, and that's made really prevalent, especially when the shark is, you know, at the beach. He won't go, he doesn't even touch the water, and he's on sand the whole time. He doesn't go anywhere near it, which I think is a great thing to add to him. He's afraid of the water, but he faces his fear when he realizes that the only person who can stop it is him, you know, and he's on that boat.
It took all of them together working and providing their own knowledge to actually take him out, because if it was Quint alone, he was too erratic and he would have died regardless. Hooper would have died without Quint being there to guide them, and then ultimately it was Brody learning from the two of them that got the shark to actually die. I mean, it took all of them together. Yeah,
and I feel like that might have been Quint's big fear. You know, because the last time he worked with other people, you know, he was the lone survivor. You know, he has that big fear. And I think that Hooper's big fear is like is being vulnerable about the ocean, you know, because like you said, everything that Hooper had done up to that point had been very controlled. Now he's in an uncontrollable situation.
Yeah, and I found something out about myself with this movie and how it felt so uncomfortable when the orca is sinking and you just see like the ship going under, but then I also really enjoyed it, and I just thought about Titanic and how I love Titanic and A Night to Remember, and I think that what it is that there's something so uncomforting about knowing that it doesn't matter how smart humankind is, that we can't outsmart the elements. Yeah. We cannot outsmart nature and just the way that the world has been made. So when you see a man-made thing like a boat that's supposed to be really strong, it's already taken out so many sharks before. It's the best one that we've got, and it's just nothing when confronted with nature that's just stronger. Like, no matter what we do, it might all be for naught. Like, nature's always going to win no matter what. Yeah. And that's something I learned this week.
Just gonna go outside and apologize. Hey, everyone.
Well, It's like when you see, abandoned buildings and they're just covered in ivy
Yeah.
and animals have moved back in. It's just like this. We cannot outsmart
Yeah.
nature.
Well, that's
and
like
there's
it's like during COVID, there were all those
Yeah.
news reports that animals were returning to the towns where people were shut in because they're, yeah, it's true. You can't stop it. It's something that is constant. We are the thing that isn't.
I like when you see the blown up bits of the shark like floating there, and then it's like kind of falling just a little bit, because it's definitely like this moment of silence for everybody, and then also for the shark, where you're kind of like, well, I kind of feel a little bad for it too.
Yeah. And that, at the end of Jaws, I do always feel sad for the shark, just because of, shark facts. Like, it's not, I don't know if the shark was intentionally, I don't know if it was an intentional murder of all of those people, or if it was just a survival thing.
He was pretty smart.
He was very smart. I mean, he basically drilled a hole into the bottom of that boat, too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's like Steven Spielberg said, all those people in the book were not likable, and he wanted the shark to win. I also want the shark to win. I need my Street Shark Amityville of, shark feminists.
The only thing that I think could have made that last encounter better is maybe if you saw something from Hooper's perspective of like below the water, looking at some of the action that was happening up top. Like, I can see that kind of shot being really cool, but that's probably something Spielberg would do nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
And use some CGI for it. So I can't talk too much shit. And because that wouldn't have really been possible with the types of sharks and stuff that they had then. But that would have been cool. It's like the only thing.
Like, yeah, I feel like
I can dream.
I feel like if he could George Lucas this just a wee bit, and just that minor part would have been like something to show that Hooper wasn't just down there, peeing in the ocean. You know what I mean? Because you're kind of left like after you've seen the movie, Hooper survives. So you're kind of just like, there's a lot of time where he's just like, because after he's down there, that's like he's down there for a while. They get the stuff back up, and then it breaks that little winch, and then they are able to get it back up on the boat, and they realize that he's gone. And then the shark jumps on the ship, and he sees the ship sinking. I know he's down there looking up at that boat going, oh, man. Oh, no. You know what I mean? And you're kind of like, hey, Hoop, what gives, man? I would love to talk to Steven Spielberg and be like, was there anything ever written in the script to give Hooper a little bit more to do in that moment? Because I understand if the whole idea is like, we're supposed to think that he's dead and that Brody's alone. And that's
exactly what it is. Yeah.
But then once you realize that Hooper's alive, it kind of turns it on its head. It's not a heroic moment anymore. Now it's kind of like, hey, Hooper, why were you such a dick and hiding under there? Brody needed your help. Like,
I bet that if they were to do it right now, you would have some moment where maybe part of the cage was still connected to him and it got caught like under some sort of rock or rubble, like, and he's kind of trapped there. Like, I bet that they would give him some sort of out as to why. I mean, it does make sense for him to hide it first to make sure that Jaws isn't coming after him specifically. But once it's clear that he's not, you would think that he would somehow like swim up and try to get back on the boat.
Like, honestly, that would make the most sense. Like, we even see the cage fall to the ground.
Right.
Like, maybe the cage fell on top of him and they weren't able to get the cage back up.
Yeah.
That would make so much more sense as to why he was down there for so long.
But, like, I think about this movie, and it's just so much fun because, like, when they are pulling up that cage and the little device that they have to wheel it back up, it breaks. And so they have to put it on a different hook, and then that breaks, too. It's just, like, it's so anxiety driving, and I really enjoy
the
it.
film is just wall-to-wall, like, action.
Yeah.
Like, especially, and even in those moments when they're on the boat in the middle of the ocean and there's nothing going on, you're still just like, you know you
Yeah.
know that shark is going to come back. Like, you are on the edge of your seat just waiting. And then all of a sudden it comes back and you jump 10 feet off your couch because you're just like, I knew it was happening, but I didn't realize it was going to happen, you know?
Right.
Like, I really don't have any, like, even though I did just talk crap about the whole Hooper scene, honestly, I really have nothing bad to say about the movie. There's a reason it is a summer blockbuster. It's fun. It's fun and it's good and it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and on top of that, it gave us my favorite ride ever at Universal Studios.
I did go and I watched it on YouTube this morning.
I'm so glad you did. I know that I watched it the other night and I sent it to you and I was like, I can smell this ride. Because there is a particular for anyone who's ever ridden this ride, especially at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, when you get into that boat dock and it's like misty and muggy in there and you can smell that, and it's not like the smell on Pirates of the Caribbean. It's indescribable, and that was always my favorite part of the ride, when you're in that dark area and all the boats start moving and stuff. I'm like, I miss it.
It's a really short ride, though.
It is. It's very short, but it's so fun. It's just like the movie. It's action packed from the beginning. I love the movie, but big question, Christina, would you recommend the book?
I would not widely recommend the book. I would recommend it if I knew someone who's like a super diehard Jaws fan, just for, fun, and so that, like the history behind everything. I would probably do that. But other than that, no. Like, if I just knew someone that wanted like a thriller book, I would not recommend Jaws.
Yeah. I'm in the I'm in the same boat. Oh, see, I knew we could pull one more out. Yeah, while I enjoyed what the book tried to do, the fact that nothing was ever tied up and there was no real ending made me madder than anything. And I would recommend the movie 100 times over the book.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would recommend the movie to just about everybody.
Yeah. And I don't think I know a single person who hasn't seen this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
me neither.
If there are people out there who are listening to this right now who have stayed away from it because they don't like horror, this is not like horror. This is just, I feel like this fits nicely into a weird area where you're gonna get scared, but not scared like horror, and you're gonna laugh, but not like a comedy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are funny bits in this movie, and then there's
for sure.
There's like a seriousness to it, and there's like jump scares, but it's not bad jump scares. Like, it's so, and I think that's why so many people have gravitated to it, is that it's not any one category. Even though people want to put it in thrillers or like monster movie or horror, it's like it's so much more than any one category.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a little bit for everybody to
yeah,
love.
it's a boat movie. Is that a new category we can start? Boat movies?
I even like when you talk about like the humor. There's the part where they're on the Orca and it's Hooper and Brody, and Hooper is yelling at Brody to step out further on that little like platform, and Brody's afraid and he's like, "Why?
Yeah.
Why?" And they're arguing, but like, and that part's funny, but like the brilliance of the movie is that that's kind of where he's at when he takes out Jaws. Like, he mastered his fear to be out like suspended over water, knowing that he's gonna go down with the ship probably, and yet he's still doing it, and he successfully takes out the shark. Like, that's the thing about it, is that like you think it's funny in the moment, at the end you think, oh, you're all like afraid for him, but when you really think about it, those two moments are specifically tied together. That's like, it's so smart.
Oh yeah, everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
There's never a moment that doesn't feel like there's closure to it. It's such a brilliant film. Oh,
it is. I lie.
Well, is there anything else you want to say about the film or the book?
There's a lot I can keep saying, but
I know.
I think I'm good.
I know. There's just too much. There's too much. I love it. And now that we're in the summer, I think everyone should watch it. It's going to be on TV at some point. And if it's not this one, definitely Jaws 2, or which also has the same guy playing Brody. And for some reason, the mayor's been reelected.
Those suits.
Oh, yes. And then there's Jaws 3D, which was partially filmed at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. Then there's like Jaws 4, The Revenge, where
I will be exploring these other sequels.
I think everybody should. I just like it is. There is something about those. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say it. But oh God, is it something? It's like the Fast and the Furious, but worse. So now we come to the hardest part of the podcast. It's so easy to talk about the book. It's so easy to talk about the movie. It's so difficult putting it on this list of books.
There's a lot to, it's like, whether the book's good, is the movie good, is it a good adaptation?
Yeah.
Where is it on the meaning of life spectrum? Where does it fall?
I feel like a lot of it is you and I both going, would I even look at this again? let alone watch it or read it. Would I even want it anywhere near me? That's why a certain book is at the bottom of the list. So Christina and I, the brains that we are, we're smarter than the average shark. We we discussed this, and I think we picked a really good spot for Jaws to fall on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jaws is now going to take up the number 5 spot, previously held by A Night to Remember, and for good reason. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a good, like Christina said that if you take out all the extra stuff and you really boil it down, you know, a lot of the stuff that's in the book is in the movie. Mm-hmm. So our book list now, I swear, if anyone just saw this list, I'm just like, what is this person going through?
And can I just say, too, sometimes there's faithful adaptations, which they're true to the original source, but I also think that there's a good adaptation, and sometimes good isn't 100% faithful, because sometimes there are unnecessary things to books. Sometimes you do kind of need a different screenwriter to cut the fat, make some trimmings, and also add in some additional stuff. So I think that Jaws is one of those, of the latter.
Yeah, because you can't do it all, you know?
No.
Yeah. So, for those who are keeping track, us, the book list as it stands today is Rosemary's Baby, The Wizard of Oz, High Fidelity, Waiting to Exhale, Jaws, A Night to Remember, Roger Rabbit, The Birds, Forrest Gump, Born on the 4th of July, Valley of the Dolls, Mommy Dearest, Ready Player One, sorry, Steven, and Eat, Pray, Love. It's so, honestly...
It gets real dark when you get to the bottom.
Oh, yeah. It gets weird. From Born on the 4th of July through the end, you're kind of just like, ooh. That's like if somebody checked out the bell jar one too many times. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I am extremely excited about our next topic.
Oh, yeah. Christina, tell the people what we're going to read.
We will be reading and watching the Richard Matheson book and the movie based off of it. Hell House, which is one that I really like. And Nikki, I don't think you've read or watched either, right?
I have not. I am going into this so blind. But I'm excited.
Welcome to hell.
What's that, Christina? Hold on, what was that noise Excellent. I see you like with your hands together, just like, yes.
It's about to get dark.
I like how every other book is just like, la la la, hey, la da 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 da, you know, like nothing we've done. we're not like... I swear we don't have issues, you guys. It just happens this way. But...
I mean, we like to talk about stuff that is new to us, but then we also like to talk about stuff that we're kind of passionate about. So it's almost like we go like every other one is one or the other, which I think is a good mix.
Yeah. I think we balance it out quite nicely. And I am super excited about this. Christina said that it's going to be a spooky one. And I was like, we haven't done one of those in a while. So we've been really like grounded almost in reality for a while when you look at what we've been reading. I mean, sure, Rosemary's Baby, you know, has the devil in it and stuff. But like, it's still really, like, I could go outside and go walk around and be like, oh yeah, this is where Rosemary's Baby was. You know what I mean? This one I am very worried and scared about. I'm nervous.
I like that you're worried.
I have to sit outside in the sun and read this one. I'm scared.
Well, it's been a few years for me, so it'll be fun to revisit.
I'm pumped. And just so everyone knows, after next week's episode, I'm prepping you guys now, we are going on summer vacation. Pew, pew. So there won't be an episode 2 weeks after the next one.
Don't miss us too much.
Yeah, we're going on vacation.
Actually, miss us a lot.
Yeah, miss us like a ton. And like listen to all of our old episodes to make you feel better. Because we're going to #Feminist Shark Island, Amity. We're going to go hang out with those cut-off shirt-wearing street sharks. I don't know why I can't stop thinking about street sharks. They used to have gummies too, like
I do
like
remember
the fruit
gummies.
snacks.
Yeah.
Oh, gonna go find me some of those on our summer vacation. But yeah, Christina, thank you for always going on these wacky adventures.
Oh, of course. With you always.
I promise that if I were the Hooper to your Brody, I would have come up above water sooner and helped you. I won't let you fend for yourself.
Aw, I would go out on a tiny little wooden board to take out a shark for you.
Oh, thank you. For a minute, I thought you were going to say again that you just sit on a park bench and talk to me.
I mean, if I'm going to be realistic, that's probably...
if we're being realistic, sitting together on a park bench and having a conversation is probably like the most we can do right now.
There's not a whole lot that I would go into one of those little shark cages and go into the water for. I'll be real honest about that. Like...
Same.
It would have to be like for all of humankind. And even then I'd be like, I mean, we've kind of fucked it all up pretty well. So, you know, I don't know if it's...
Do you guys really deserve my help? I mean, you're the ones who did it. I mean, not me.
It's like that Larry David face. Like, I don't know.
No, they'd call on me to be like, can you save humanity? And I'd do like the John Travolta Pulp Fiction. Huh?
Right.
No.
But sit on a park bench, talk to you, give you my time.
Always.
Take some time from you. Of course.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, thank you. And
Thank you. Thank you too, Jessie.
Yeah, for cleaning up our shark guts, I guess. Yeah.
Our shark poop.
Yeah. Oh, Jessie's our Quint. Oh, our like angry, disgruntled loner. just like shaking his head. He's probably gonna cut that part. We'll see. We'll see if it's season.
I can keep it.
Oh, yay! He just said we can keep it.
Aww.
Oh, yay. Well, to everyone listening, thank you. Christina, I am already scared and I cannot wait. And I guess we'll talk to you all next time with Hell House. Ugh.
Until then.
Well, bye, Christina.
Bye.
Bye.